Hello. Oh, that's better. Okay. If this cuts out, I apologise, but I'll just keep going. So, I was just mentioning, I'm Sarah from Parent Plus, and tonight's live Facebook chat is all about self-esteem, which is a huge topic which we could talk about for a very, very long time. So I want to try and give you some of the basics just to get you thinking about it and how it might link in with your children, but with yourself as well, because we all can relate to whether our self-esteem is high or whether it's low, and just to be a bit more mindful of it, really. So I have had some questions from some parents as well, so I'll try and get those covered as well if I can. So first of all, self-esteem is, I think, or my experience of it when I've worked with clients and with parents and just in general actually, is that people misunderstand or confuse confidence with self-esteem. So I was driving home from school this afternoon and I saw a prime example of it. I was driving down the road and there was a little girl, I say little, she was probably about 10 or 11, and she was pretending to jump out in the road while I was driving past, and it's an awkward corner. I was going really, really slow anyway, like literally to a stop, so it wasn't too much of a problem. But she was trying to jump out, and she had friends around her, a group of people who were all laughing and joking, and as she tried to jump out into the road, she was kind of pulling faces at me and, kind of appeared extremely confident. So if someone was to ask, looking at that child, do you think that child's confident? I'm pretty sure they'd kind of say, yeah, of course she's really confident. And actually she did appear really confident, but my guess is, from what I know and how I understand self-esteem is, the chances are her self-esteem is not that high, because she was putting herself at risk, in danger. She wasn't thinking clearly. It was kind of a performance, which often confidence can be. I'm also guilty of it. I know in the past I've come across as extremely confident, and even if I'm feeling quite anxious or I don't know, nervous, I'll still often come across as quite confident because it's a defence mechanism and it's just practice. So just because we might appear confident doesn't mean the self-esteem's high. So what I want to do is just explain. I'm just looking down, I made some notes there because I'm confusing myself. So of which order I was going to cover it with you. Okay, before I go into answering any questions then, hi Saz. I just want to just give you a basic idea of what self-esteem is. There'll be loads of different theories out there. If you Google self-esteem, I mean, I've done it before myself and I've done training, but if you Google self-esteem, there will literally be, I don't know, hundreds of things that are different ways to explain it and what it is, and it's so individual to each person. So if I just want to show you, now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this, but I'm going to try on my flip chart. Actually got my pyjamas on, so I'm trying not to show you too much here. Right, no, I'm not going to be able to show you that. Basically, there's 4 sections to self-esteem. There's one particular person called Richard Erskine who, this is his theory basically. I really, really like it, and it works really well, particularly working with children and adolescents. So this is the one that I tend to use quite a lot. If you want more information on who he is and where to find it, then just give us a shout and I can send you a link. But basically, when you think about yourself as a whole self, so when we're feeling our whole selves, we're feeling kind of robust, our self-esteem is high. It's when we've got a nice even balance of all the parts of ourself. When our self-esteem is quite low, it might be that we're trying subconsciously, it's not necessarily we're doing it kind of on purpose, but might be trying to cut parts of that off, and that's often what children can do without realising. So it's quite good. So it's saying the connection is weak. Again here. Jackie, can you hear me? I'll just keep talking. So self-esteem breaks down into 4 different parts. Thinking, feeling, behaviour and physiological. So your body, what's happening in your body. Do you recognise if your heart's racing? Do you take care of yourself? Do you eat well? Do you exercise? Thanks, Jackie. Saying it's okay there. Okay, great. I'll just keep talking. I think it's just bad my end. So he breaks it down, Richard Erskine breaks it down into these four parts. And what I say to people, because I do have people in private practice that will come to me and say, I want to increase my self-esteem. Wow, what a task. Where do you start with that? And it's not just about, often as people think, building confidence. It's really about understanding the whole of us and how we function. And they're the four areas that it can be broken down into. So again, your thinking, your feeling, your behaviour, and then the physiological side. And often we find as people, and again with our children, that we're better at one than the other. So some people are really expressive with their feelings. They can connect with their feelings really quickly. They understand them. But it might be actually that, at times when they don't have a very good clarity of thinking, they can't make good choices or decisions, So you might say, oh, they're better at feeling than they are at thinking. Very common the other way round, where people may overthink massively. Lie in bed at night, thinking, and there's not much acknowledgement for the feelings. So there's not a balance there between the two, because thinking and feeling are both equally important. So you've got those two, then you've got the behaviour and the physiological. So again, behaviour is knowing how you behave in certain situations, and again with your children in times of stress. So if I get stressed, I tend to want to hibernate. I would happily curl up in bed and stay there for a week till it all just goes away, which of course it doesn't. Some people will start doing more, so they'll go into this quick, fast, right, just keep going. We all behave differently, but it's about recognising in your children what behaviours that they may present when things aren't quite going so well. So again, you can get a nice balance of that. So for example, when I said I might want to hibernate, so I know it's really important for me when I feel like that to get myself out and get myself around people, not to overdo it, but to have a balance of the two. So it's the same with our children. And then the physiological is fairly self-explanatory in the sense that it's about, am I looking after my body? Am I having massive sugar highs and lows in the day? Do I drink too much caffeine? Do I exercise? All the things that, would make you feel a bit better and a bit more robust and potentially calmer in yourself. Again, these are all the things that we want a nice balance of. So we want to understand our bodies. We want to know what's going on. We want to look after them. We also need to recognise how we behave in certain situations and whether that's beneficial or not. We need to understand our feelings, and we need to be able to think and not overthink. So there's quite a lot, but those four sections. So again, we've got some worksheets actually that myself and Jackie use, which we can put on this. Someone just said self-care is so important but easy to forget. It really, really is. And it's only, I don't know about you, but I find it's only after a week of not doing it, I think I feel awful. Why have I not exercised? Why have I eaten rubbish all week? Why have I not done any of the things that I know make me feel so much better? And I think it's hard sometimes to promote self-care with our children. I think often what we'll do is they hear us a lot moaning about how we don't take care of ourselves. So I hear it all the time. Oh, I've not gone to the gym. I should have gone to the gym. I need to stop eating rubbish. And we don't do it on purpose, but I'm certainly guilty of saying things like this in front of my children. So it's almost like we're drilling into them, this is how not to take care of yourself. When really, little things like one of the things I try and do is we try and go on a family walk most nights if we can. Nowhere far, literally 10 minutes, and it's just a time where we play like silly little games, or we will talk, but it gets just getting outside. So just very subtle. She loves that now, so she'll say to me at night, can we go on a walk tonight? She misses it if we don't do it. So it's just sort of getting routines and habits like that. If you find that your kids as well as yourself need a little boost. So basically, they're the four areas that a lot of the training that me and Jackie will do, or our one-to-one work, when we talk about self-esteem, we'll base it on those four. So just to think for yourself and just reflect and think, okay, am I in control of all four of those areas? Where do I need a little help? Where do I need a bit of a boost? Is my child overthinking a lot? Do they seem to be worrying a lot? Okay, so that might mean then one of the other three areas is suffering. Are they physiologically okay? Are they are they behaving? Are they getting out enough? Are they okay in their friendship groups? And then, I wonder if they're feeling, what are they feeling? So trying to see that you can get an insight really into all of the different areas. So I'm going on now because I could just talk about this forever. I absolutely love that theory, and I think it's really important, and it's certainly changed the way I am. by kind of considering those things. So I'm going to jump on now to the questions. I'm sorry if I'm a bit stuttery because it's really off-putting because the reception is so bad from my end. Okay, so one of the questions I was asked is, how can you improve self-esteem in a 12-year-old boy who's liked at school by being kind of laid back, and that then as a result seems like parents thinking they're not putting in too much effort. Now, again, I hear a lot of, I mean, this parent, by the way, hasn't used this word, but it reminds me of, I hear a lot about people saying their children are just lazy. Now, I get that we can all be lazy at times, and I hate that word because I always think if somebody's being what's seen as lazy, there's usually something behind it. If they're not motivated to go out and do stuff, if they're not motivated to be around people, there'll be a reason for that. It might be that they're struggling. It might be that they're a little bit anxious. It could be a million and one things. So it's really important we don't just assume that people are lazy. We think, actually, could there be something else behind it? So, with regards to, again, 12-year-old, was talking about this last night when we were doing the one on bedtimes, is about the developmental stage. So, again, there's going to be certain things that for this person at the moment is important for them to fit in. It's a stage where identity is absolutely crucial. So if this child has found a role that he's getting his needs met through being, and it's quite easy, then he's going to stick at it, because the key thing is that he fits in, because that is the crucial stage at that age, that it's all or nothing. It's either I fit in or I don't, and it's a frightening place really for them to be. So in a way, rather than telling them to do more and you need to do this and you need to do that, sometimes it's about just letting them know that you can imagine how hard it is at this time for them to that they're in a bigger school and they're their friendship groups. And I mean, I wouldn't recommend saying this to a 12-year-old boy, but bear in mind they're starting, their hormones will be absolutely raging. And the other crucial part of that development stage is that they're starting to realise that they're responsible for their own feelings. So encourage this by getting them to do more for themselves. So that will have then a knock-on effect on the choices that they make at school and places that you're not at, because they start to realise there's a bigger world, there's more things to do, they've got to take more responsibility. So it can literally start with little things at home, like making sure that they're collecting their own washing, putting their own pots away, give them chores, all the stuff they're going to absolutely hate you for, but are really important because they need to start taking responsibility and learning, because by that way they will then learn to make better choices in other areas of their life where you're not there all the time. Okay, so yeah, that was that. And I think, as I mentioned, just bearing in mind identity is absolutely crucial at that stage. Another question I was asked is, what can you do or how can you manage when children criticise themselves? So, and I've had this again with my daughter, doing a picture, oh, it's rubbish, I've gone out of the lines, or I can't do that, or they'll notice that, or they'll say that their friends can do things better than them. I mean, again, every child is different, so without the specific details of your child and an insight, I can only kind of make some assumptions and just kind of give some suggestions and ideas. But, children really will try and control their feelings in so many different ways, and they've not mastered it just yet. Again, depending on the age. So if I go off, I think the question that I've got, I've not said who the people are in case, I don't know if they want to remain confidential or not. So, but I think that this child is a similar sort of age, or around the same age as my daughter, again, at the age where they are starting to notice that there are other people in the world, and so they will naturally then start to compare themselves to them. So, it might be that they're angry about something completely different to the fact that they've drawn out the lines on the picture, for example, and they're not quite sure how to express that anger, so they get irritated by themselves, they internalise it because they're not externalising it, or they don't feel comfortable, or usually it's not necessarily don't feel comfortable, but that they're not sure how to yet, because they're still learning, they're still not sure, so it comes in on them then. So it's like that they can't do it and they're stupid, when actually they may be feeling that someone else has treated them in a way that's stupid, or it could be frustration, it could be anger. I think one of the key things for this is, because, and as I say, I've experienced this, so if my daughter says, oh, I'm angry, no, if she says to me, I can't do it, I'm rubbish, my gut reaction, because I don't think she's rubbish, is to say, no, you're not. But then we get into this back and forth. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Well, I think it is. Such and such can do it better than me, so I think it is. And I could tell my daughter all night that it's not rubbish and it's lovely and it's fantastic, but she isn't hearing it because it just then becomes about who's right and who's wrong. So it's about validating the feelings. So saying something like, oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way about it. You know, it upsets me to see you get so cross. You know, I feel that you've done a really good job of that. So you take on the ownership from yours, but don't tell them that they're wrong, because at that moment in time, they're internalising that that's rubbish and they're sad about it. So validate how they're feeling. Highlight, as I'm sure you will do, you know, all of the positive stuff that they do. And when they are doing something, make sure you massively praise it. You know, when you get that, you see that little, I don't know if it's the same with yours, but that little chuffedy smile that they're not quite wanting to come out because it's a bit embarrassing, but you can tell they're a bit pleased with themselves. They're the times to lay it on thick, because there's a little something in the head that will go, actually, yeah, they're right, because I was a bit chuffed with that myself. So just look out for those moments and really kind of lay it on with thick with that. So it's about praising them as well, just for being and just being themselves. So again, as parents, I think it's a bit of like a traditional parenting thing where we kind of, you know, we praise them for lots of things that they do, you know, rather than just praising them for just being who they are. And again, I hear it a lot of times with parents, just, you know, oh, I love you and I love you just for being you, and, you know, all of that stuff, rather than it always being about stuff that they've done because they're doing. We want to encourage the children to be praised and to know that they're loved just for being. That's enough. So again, we're kind of nurturing them through that stage where they're going to be comparing themselves to others. And again, the way you can do that is think about the 4 sections of self-esteem, because if you help them increase their self-esteem, they'll just criticise themselves less anyway, naturally, because they feel more robust. So focus on all of those 4 areas again: the thinking, the feeling, the behaviour, and the physiological. And you'll find that you'll be better at some of that with your children than other sections of it, and that will probably link into how you are with yourself. So you might be absolutely brilliant at, I don't know, the physiological. So you might go to the gym 3 times a week, you might eat really healthily, you might be really aware of your body, but then you might massively overthink, or you just don't do feelings, or you cry non-stop. You know, it's kind of like, it's about all 4 and getting a balance of all 4. So just remembering those 4 sections and just question. And I think it'd be really helpful, I do this a lot, where just think about your own self-esteem. Think about those 4 sections: your thinking, your feeling, your behaviour, and your physiological, and think, how do I sit within those? Because that will be a good indicator probably of what your children are good at, or which areas they might need strengthening, or, you know, that they will kind of probably link in to your habits, because they're watching you. And your, you know, self-esteem is also mirrored. It's not to say that if yours is low, your children's is automatically low, because it is about these different individual things, and they're not going to be complete clones of you. But, you know, again, just watch about some of the stuff that you say. You know, some of the comments about, oh, yeah, I've done it myself, I'm totally guilty of this. Oh, I've put weight on, I want to lose weight. Or, oh, look at the state of my hair. Or, did it? And actually, that's really unhelpful for kids, because I think we're kind of, sorry, Jackie's just, I think this is Jackie, yeah. Physiological, as in what's going on in your body. We'll post some stuff. Yeah, we'll put some stuff in the group, and some worksheets, because it's not just about going to the gym, eating, it's about knowing your body. So again, I mean, this is going a bit off on a tangent, but when I've done stuff on anxiety with clients or in training, one of the biggest things with anxiety is the triggers. It's just so physiological, and when people get stressed and anxious, you can feel it so much in your body, but people are not actually noticing the signs until often they can be in full-blown panic mode. But actually their heart will have been speeding up and starting to get faster way before that, way before. And that's where you can actually go in and then think, well, okay, what do I need to do to soothe myself? And it's the same with children. So one thing that I've done some classes, myself and Jackie have been lucky enough to trial some mindfulness stuff in schools as well. So one of the exercises that I did once was getting children, you know, the good old musical statues or musical bumps. It's getting them to jump around and then to stop. And when they stop, ask them, Okay, is your heart racing? Can you feel your heart? What do your hands feel like? Can you feel your feet? Just getting them just to start to actually recognise, oh, when I do this, my heart speeds up. When I do that, and they'll start to then connect that if they're overthinking, that their heart might be racing a little bit, or they might feel a bit clammy, or it's never ever too early to teach them to understand their bodies and the physiological side of things. So really do that as much as you can. Sometimes when I go on a walk, and people would laugh if they saw us, and it's very, very cheesy, and my daughter takes the mickey a little bit about it, but she does secretly quite enjoy it, although I think she'd be mortified if a friend saw her. But we'll walk along and I'll say, right, she calls it, can we do that relaxation walk? And what we'll say to her is, okay, we're going to walk and we're going to listen to see what we can hear. And then we're going to say, now we're going to walk for the next however far, and we're going to see if we can feel the ground on our feet. Then, or we might say, okay, we're going to see what it's like when we just have our hands down our sides and walk, and see what we can feel. I'm just getting her just to kind of be in the moment and just be a bit more mindful. That's another great thing with self-esteem as well, is to practice relaxation. I hear so many kids, I'm bored. This all links into self-esteem as well, because boredom is a life skill. It's not boredom, it's called being in the now. Sometimes life can be boring, but we need to learn to be with that and just to be able to be, rather than, right, I must fill this time now with something. Okay, so the last question that I was asked, and I'm not going to go into in much detail because I think it's a whole other question in itself as well, was, but just want to make sure I acknowledge it, that, saying again the connections week, so I'm sorry if it is for you, that exam stress, for kids coming up to exam stress, again, the mindfulness stuff, the stuff, it's all fantastic, is about getting them to learn to just be in the now, because if we're not in the now, we're either in the past or we're in the future, and this is where all the what ifs come in. What if I don't pass? What if I'm not good enough? What if? And if we were in the now and we were really focusing on the now, the what ifs wouldn't feature, because they can't. I was like, I don't know where I heard it, but there was a quote or something that says, it's impossible to be anxious at the same time as being relaxed. So rather than focusing on being less anxious, less worried, just focus on being more relaxed, because you can't do the two at the same time. It's physically impossible. So the exam stress and adapting to change and transition. Again, this all links into self-esteem. So if you focus on those 4 areas, self-esteem will get higher, and it will just mean that they're able to manage those situations better, because it just makes them more robust in themselves. And as I said, we have a whole kind of, myself and Jackie have done a whole training course just on that very thing. So it is a big topic, and, it's something that we can cover again. So I don't know whether, anyone's got any questions they want to ask about self-esteem, or I'm not sure whether the signal's great enough for me to even see the comments, but we can give it a go. As to whether, or, is self-esteem something that people recognise can be an issue with themselves? I know mine can fluctuate depending on what's going on. I can feel really robust and, kind of got it all together, and then something will happen and something might tip, and then all of a sudden it feels kind of, well, I haven't got a handle on this anymore. Then your self-esteem goes, then you can start being more critical of yourself, and it's not something that we're born with. We're not born with low self-esteem. It's not, oh, well, I've got low self-esteem, so that's me. We can change this. We just work on these 4 areas, and gradually, bit by bit, we'll see the change. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not kind of a magic wand, right, I want higher self-esteem. It's about working on all 4 of those areas that I've mentioned, and doing it bit by bit, till eventually, one of the ways that you can recognise when your self-esteem is increased, it's kind of, there's a contentment with it, almost, I'm okay as I am, I'm good enough. And at times when you start to think, oh, I'm not good enough, then think, right, my self-esteem seems to be dipping a little bit here, right, what am I thinking, what am I feeling, what's my behaviour like, what am I doing, am I isolating myself, am I doing too much physiologically, is my diet okay, am I noticing that I'm stressed? And yeah, I've just got a comment there, is similar with self-esteem in stressful times to me. Yeah, I think it's really, someone just said the volume's low, is that better? Yes, I think I was covering the mic. So yeah, so it's kind of, same with most people is when we go into a bit of a meltdown or where something is stressful, we revert to old ways that we would probably use as a child, which are kind of survival mechanisms that we've learnt, and they're not always that helpful for us as adults. And but if you use those 4 areas as a basis, just to kind of check in with yourself, where am I at, and gradually, bit by bit, working on those areas, you will start to feel different and feel more robust. Is there anything then anyone wants to ask about children? As I've said, me and Jackie will share some stuff on the page anyway, and we'll probably cross over with this again with some of the other topics. We've done bedtimes, done this. I think, as I said earlier, Jackie's going to do, I don't know if she's there. Are you here, Jackie? If you are, give us a shout. I think Jackie was going to do, is she there? No, I can't see her. She's probably off having a cup of tea, leaving me to it. But I think she was going to do, there's lots of likes for that. Oh, everybody knows what Jackie's like then. So Jackie's going to do, I think, on behavioural stuff, which is kind of for a younger age, really. So if there's anything you would like to know about, anything you want to hear about, just put some questions. You can message them privately. Yeah, star charts she's put. Woohoo! That's a sticker for you, Jackie, for turning up. If there's any topics that you do want to hear about or anything you want help with, just either private message us if it's confidential. We'll keep you confidential. She said, how rude, I'm still here. Not so sure. And then, we'll try our best to cover it. So I think that's pretty much everything I was going to mention tonight. I feel like I've kind of been a bit distracted. It's not been great, this signal. I might need to rethink where I do these videos for next time, but we'll see. Okay, so I'll leave you all to it and catch up with you soon. Cheers.